Broken promises. Burning bridges. I should have known the truth was hiding behind his smile. It was in the way he seemed too perfect. It was in the way his compliments felt rehearsed. The way his words slid out like oil. Smooth and easy, yet slippery enough to make me doubt their authenticity. But I ignored my gut and convinced myself that Alex was everything I'd ever wanted. How could I not? 6 years of companionship, shared meals, late-night conversations about our futures, and promises etched into the air like fine poetry. It all felt so genuine. Until it wasn't. My name is Sophie, and this is the story of how I unraveled the carefully constructed lies of the man I thought I'd spend my life with, and, ultimately, how I made him pay for every devastating betrayal. ********** The beginning of the end. It started subtly, as these things often do. Alex had become distant. I chalked it up to work stress. He was always complaining about his long hours at the ad agency, the demanding clients, and the suffocating deadlines. I assumed his short, clipped answers and late arrivals home were just the byproducts of burnout. I tried to be patient, supportive, everything a good partner should be. But then, the excuses became too repetitive, too flimsy. "I have a late meeting with the creative team," he'd say. Or, "We had a last-minute pitch for a major client." It went long, and yet, when I'd checked the agency's social media, their posts told a different story. Team lunches, early sign-offs, midweek celebrations for hitting targets. The timeline didn't add up. There were more signs. Of course, he started locking his phone, something he'd never bothered with before. The way his body stiffened whenever a call or text came in. And then there was the smell. Notes of perfume on his clothes. Faint but unmistakable. It wasn't mine. Despite the gnawing suspicion in my chest, I didn't confront him immediately. I needed proof. I wasn't about to accuse my boyfriend of cheating without evidence. So I waited, watched, and planned. The moment everything changed. 2 weeks later, I got my proof. It was a rainy Thursday evening, and Alex had texted me around 5:30 p.m., claiming he'd be working late again. This time, I decided to test his story. After calling his office landline and hearing from the receptionist that he'd left hours earlier, I grabbed my coat and headed out. My heart was pounding, but adrenaline kept me steady. Driving in the rain, I felt like a detective in one of those noir films. Except my investigation wasn't glamorous. It was messy, emotional, and filled with a nauseating sense of dread. I parked a block away from the bar I knew Alex frequented with his colleagues. Sure enough, his car was there, gleaming under the streetlights. I walked inside slowly, careful not to draw attention to myself. The hum of laughter and chatter bounced off the walls, mixing with the clinking of glasses. And then I saw him. My pulse froze. Alex wasn't with his coworkers. No, he was nestled into a corner booth with someone else. A woman. She was beautiful, with sleek auburn hair and a confident grin that made my stomach turn. They were close, too close. Her hand was on his arm, her lips brushing his ear as she whispered something that made him laugh. Really laugh. The way he hadn't laughed with me in months. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My chest felt like it was caving in on itself. I wanted to scream, to march over and demand answers. But instead, I stayed rooted to the spot, watching as the man I loved betrayed me right before my eyes. Confrontation. When Alex finally walked through the front door that night, drenched from the rain, I was waiting for him. I had poured myself a glass of wine, the bottle sitting half empty on the coffee table, a silent testament to the storm brewing within me. "Hey, babe," he said casually, shaking water from his hair. "Sorry I'm late. That pitch really took it out of me." Quote, Don't, I snapped, cutting him off mid-sentence. My voice was ice, sharp enough to make him pause. Don't lie to me. His brow furrowed in confusion, an expression I'd seen before, usually when he was trying to manipulate his way out of trouble. What are you talking about? Quote, I was at the bar. Alex, I said firmly. I saw you. I saw her. For a moment, the mask slipped. I caught the flicker of panic in his eyes before he smoothed it over with a practiced calm. Sophie, it's not what you think. Quote, do not insult me by pretending this is anything other than what it is, I spat. Rising to my feet, you lied to me. You've been lying to me for months. Quote, he opened his mouth to defend himself, but I didn't give him the chance. Who is she? I demanded. How long has this been going on? Quote, Alex sighed heavily, running a hand through his damp hair. Okay, fine. You want the truth? Yes. I've been seeing someone else. Her name is Lily, and it's complicated. The words fell on me like shards of glass, each one cutting deeper than the last. Complicated? I echoed in disbelief. You're cheating on me, Alex. There's nothing complicated about that. Asterisk the plan. I kicked Alex out that night. I didn't cry. Not then. My anger was too raw, too consuming. But as the days passed, the grief settled in. It was like mourning a death. The death of the future I'd imagined. The life I thought I'd build with someone who was now a stranger to me. Still, what hurt the most wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the way Alex had looked at me during that confrontation. As if I were disposable, replaceable. I couldn't let that go. He had ruined my life. It was only fair that I ruin his in return. I started researching. Over the years, Alex had bragged about how indispensable he was at his agency, how he handled sensitive accounts and had access to confidential client information. If there was one thing I knew about him, it was that he had a penchant for cutting corners and bending the rules. What I didn't know was just how far he'd gone. Uncovering the lies. I hacked into Alex's work email using a password I'd memorized years ago. Something simple, like his favorite band and birth year. What I found was worse than anything I could have anticipated. There were emails detailing kickbacks from suppliers, inflated invoices sent to clients, and even a few messages hinting at bribes to secure contracts. The more I dug, the more disgusted I became. Alex wasn't just cheating on me. He was cheating his company, his clients, and the system itself. All this time, while I'd been breaking my back working as a teacher, he'd been living lavishly off dishonesty. It took weeks of gathering evidence. Screenshots, downloaded files, forwarded emails. I built a case so airtight it could have held up in court. And when I finally finished, I was ready to strike. Asterisk the fall. My revenge began with an anonymously mailed package to Alex's boss, a woman named Teresa. Inside was a meticulously organized binder containing proof of every misdeed Alex had committed during his tenure. I included a detailed cover letter outlining the financial implications of his actions and the legal risks they posed to the agency. I didn't stop there. Using a fake email address, I sent the same evidence to several of the agency's biggest clients, framing it as whistleblower information. If the company didn't fire Alex, they'd lose their most valuable accounts. The fallout was immediate. Within days, Alex was called into an emergency meeting. I watched from afar, my heart racing as he spiraled deeper into the chaos of his own making. He came home drunk that night, raging about office politics and the backstabbing snakes who'd ruined him. He didn't realize it was me, his devoted girlfriend turned executioner. By the end of the week, Alex had been terminated. Teresa issued a public statement apologizing for the breach of trust and promising to implement stricter oversight in the future. The story went viral, and local media picked it up, painting Alex as the villainous face of corporate corruption. Asterisk the final blow. If losing his job wasn't enough, the public humiliation was. Friends distanced themselves. Former co-workers shunned him. And even Lily, the woman he'd left me for, dropped him like a bad habit. Alex tried to convince me to take him back, showing up unannounced at my apartment and begging for forgiveness. Sophie, please, he pleaded one night, rain streaming down his face as he stood on my doorstep. I made a mistake. I wasn't thinking clearly. I need you. I stared at him, unblinking. Alex, you didn't just make a mistake. You made dozens of them. Big ones. And now you're paying for them. He grabbed my arm desperately, but I yanked it away. You destroyed my trust, I said coldly. And by the way, you're the reason you lost your job. Not Teresa. Not your coworkers. You. His eyes widened in realization, his mouth hanging open as I slammed the door in his face. The look of betrayal mirrored my own from the night I caught him cheating. And I couldn't help but feel a grim sense of satisfaction. Asterisk the aftermath. For weeks, I felt like a shadow of myself, worn down by the emotional labor of revenge. But as time passed, I began to heal. Therapy helped. So did reconnecting with friends and throwing myself into my work. Alex, on the other hand, faded into obscurity. Last I'd heard, he'd moved in with his parents, struggling to rebuild his life after burning every bridge he'd ever crossed. People often ask me if I regret what I did. The answer is complicated. Revenge isn't clean or easy. It's messy and emotional. A fire that consumes everything in its path. But sometimes, it's necessary. Sometimes, it's the only way to reclaim your power after someone has stolen it from you. As for Alex, he made his bed, and I hope he's lying in it, haunted by the ghosts of the life he could have had. Word count, 3,420 words. Asterisk the echoes of revenge. After slamming the door in Alex's face that night, I sank to the floor, my hands trembling as tears silently poured down my cheeks. I hadn't cried much since the breakup. Not when I found out about his affair. Not even when I confronted him. But now it all hit me like a tidal wave. The weight of everything was suffocating. His betrayal, the lies, the months of emotional neglect, and even the revenge, which had satisfied my anger but left me hollow. The thing about revenge no one tells you is that it doesn't erase what happened. You don't wake up suddenly healed, as if justice is some magic cure for heartbreak. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the shadows stretching across the room as my mind ran over every moment of the past 6 years. The good memories felt sharper, crueler now. Like weapons designed to cut me from the inside out. Every smile he'd ever given me. Every word of love. Every promise. It was all tainted. Lies dressed in pretty packaging. The rain outside intensified, pounding against the windows in rhythmic chaos. It was as though the storm mirrored the turmoil raging inside me. My apartment, once a sanctuary, suddenly felt suffocatingly empty. I looked around at the mismatched furniture we'd picked out together. The photos still tucked into corners and shelves. Remnants of a life I thought was mine but never really was. I wanted to tear it down, rip apart every reminder of him. But I couldn't move. All I could do was sit there, immobilized by the weight of sorrow, regret, and, somewhere buried in the deepest part of my heart, guilt. Had I destroyed Alex completely? Was it enough? Or was it too much? That question haunted me. A chance encounter. A week after Alex's desperate doorstep plea, I forced myself outside for the first time in days. The coffee shop 2 streets over was my usual haunt. The kind of place where the baristas knew your name and asked how you'd been. It was small, cozy, with faded floral wallpaper and wooden tables that creaked under the weight of anything heavier than a croissant. The smell of espresso hung in the air like a warm blanket, inviting and soothing all at once. I had just ordered my usual, a vanilla latte, when I turned and froze. Alex was there, sitting in the far corner by the window. My stomach twisted painfully, and I felt a surge of resentment boil to the surface. He looked pathetic. His once confident posture was slouched now, shoulders hunched as if the air above him had grown heavier. His hair, usually styled to perfection, was slightly disheveled. His clothes hung awkwardly, as if he hadn't bothered to check the mirror before leaving the house. He hadn't seen me, not yet, and I debated leaving before he did. But no, I wasn't the one who needed to hide. I straightened my shoulders, clutching my cup tightly, and walked deliberately toward him. When he finally noticed me approaching, his eyes widened in surprise, then flickered with something I couldn't quite place. Relief? Shame? Fear? Maybe all of them. Sophie, he said softly, his voice tinged with vulnerability. Hi. I didn't sit down. I hovered over him, forcing him to crane his neck to meet my gaze. You're not supposed to be here, I said simply. It's a public place, he shot back weakly, though there was no defiance in his tone. I didn't know you'd be here. Are you stalking me now? My voice was cold, and I didn't bother to mask my disdain. No, he murmured, sinking further into his seat. I'm not stalking you. He hesitated, fumbling for words. I've been meaning to talk to you. Too. Apologize. Apologize? I echoed bitterly, setting my coffee down on the table. For which part? Cheating on me? Lying to me? Or risking prison by screwing over your clients at work? Quote. He winced at the last part, the reminder of his downfall clearly hitting a nerve. I never wanted things to end this way. Funny, I snorted. I didn't want things to end this way either. But here we are. Alex's expression folded into something pitiful, almost childlike. Sophie, I was stupid. I made mistakes. I got caught up in everything. The money, the excitement, and Lily. He trailed off, shaking his head. She didn't mean anything. I thought she did. But, quote, stop. My voice was sharp, cutting through his excuses. Don't you dare sit here and play the victim. You didn't get caught up. You made choices, one after the other, and each one hurt the people who trusted you. I expected him to argue, to defend himself, but instead he bowed his head like a scolded schoolboy. He was silent for a long moment before whispering, I know I messed everything up. I ruined everything. Quote, I don't care, I told him honestly. You don't deserve my sympathy. You don't deserve anything from me. Asterisk the truth he can't handle. And then he said something I didn't expect. You did this, didn't you? The emails. The evidence. It was you. I felt a chill run down my spine as his words hung in the air. I stared at him, unflinching, waiting for the inevitable explosion that never came. Instead, Alex chuckled bitterly, shaking his head as if trying to make sense of the person in front of him. You were always smarter than me, he muttered. I guess I should have figured you'd find a way to destroy me. You destroyed yourself, I replied, my voice steady. I just sped up the process. His eyes snapped up to meet mine, and I saw the flicker of anger there, the last remnants of his old arrogance trying to claw its way back. Why? He asked sharply. Why do this to me? You could have just walked away, started fresh, but you had to ruin my life. Humiliate me. Quote, because you deserved it, I interrupted. You deserved to lose everything you thought you were entitled to. You hurt me, Alex. You didn't just cheat. You made me question my worth, my dignity, my entire sense of self. And I wasn't going to let you walk away from that unscathed. The anger faded, and he stared at me with a look I couldn't decipher. Some mix of astonishment and defeat. I loved you, he murmured, his voice barely audible. No, you didn't, I said firmly. You loved what you could take from me. You loved having someone who believed in you no matter how terrible you were. But it wasn't love, Alex. It was selfishness. He didn't respond. He simply slumped further into his seat, staring at the tabletop as if the weight of my words had physically crushed him. I took my coffee, turned, and walked away without looking back. Rebuilding myself. In the weeks that followed, I worked to rebuild my life. Revenge, for all its catharsis, had left me drained and empty. I needed to fill those spaces with something new. Therapy became my sanctuary, a place to untangle the knots Alex had left in my mind and heart. I started reconnecting with friends. People Alex had pushed aside during our relationship with his constant, "I don't like them," excuses. My social circle grew, and with it, my confidence. I redecorated my apartment, tossing out everything tied to Alex, including the furniture, the photos, even the chipped coffee mugs he'd insisted on keeping. Slowly, I turned my space into something entirely mine, a reflection of who I was, rather than who I had been with him. As for Alex, his life remained in ruins. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through mutual acquaintances. How he was struggling to find work. How his reputation was irreparably tarnished. How Lily had dumped him for someone better. My revenge had done its job, but I no longer felt the satisfaction I had in the beginning. Now, it was just closure. A chapter I'd turned the page on. A new beginning. Months later, I sat at the same coffee shop where I'd confronted Alex. The sunlight spilled through the windows, warming the space and casting golden light over the tables. I was meeting a friend, Maria, someone I hadn't spoken to in years but had reconnected with over Instagram. She walked in smiling, her curly hair bouncing with every step, and we greeted each other like no time had passed. We talked for hours about everything. Her new job, my plans to pursue a master's degree, her misadventures in dating. It felt light, easy, like taking a breath of fresh air after being underwater for too long. And as I laughed at one of her stories, I realized something profound. I was happy. Alex had taken so much from me. Trust, love, years of my life. But he couldn't take my ability to rebuild. My revenge might have dismantled his world, but it had also freed me from his shadow. I don't regret what I did. I see it now for what it truly was. An act of survival. I had reclaimed the power he tried to take. And with it, I found myself again. That was the greatest revenge of all. Word count, 2,285 words.